Hey guys, Mike here. So today we get to answer all your questions and comments. And actually, I should say I only picked 3 questions. One was on IB Crush, the other was on stock buybacks, very detailed, like 6-part question. But the other one took me a while to answer because sometimes I gotta take a moment just to enlighten people the best I can with facts, right? So I enjoy doing that sometimes. So this was a question I basically partisan out, and I'm gonna show you something very important because the one thing people don't realize is people are still really upset, so inflation's too high and this is who caused it and that's who caused it and all that stuff. So I'm actually going to show you actually who caused it. Okay. I mean, I literally had this conversation with my 10-year-old nephew yesterday because of a comment he made. And at the end of it, he came up with the right answer. And when I got done talking to him, so I thought, you know what? If a 10-year-old can understand this, adults definitely have to be able to understand this. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and take you through it. If you don't like facts and you don't like, being enlightened with the truth, you might as well click off now, right? Most YouTubers ain't gonna say that, but just going about your way, okay? Because if you have a bias and you like to be honed in on that bias and you don't want anybody to pull you off that bias, this answer to this question will definitely do that if you're actually an open-minded person. So I'm just putting that out there to you, giving you fair warning, okay? So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Feel free to participate in the comments as usual and ask any more questions you have, okay? So first one here says, how can the Fed possibly cut rates like other central banks just did with inflation where it is? That would be crazy, wouldn't it? And for those who don't know, the Bank of Canada just cut rates as well as European. And so now they think the Bank of England is going to be next. And really, can they? Sure, they can, right? They absolutely can. But what you're going to get to find out is how serious are they and what their timeline is to try to get inflation down 2%. We don't really know that. Okay, because we see because once it got down in the 3s, it's gotten really sticky, right? It's been a slow go, popping back up, coming back down, popping back up, and so it's going to be tough to do that because of how they collect the data, how lagging the data is, and then in some areas they just can't affect it, right? They really just can't affect it that much. So we'll see if they're going to do it. I think they'll be under pressure to maybe do it, but we'll see. We'll see if they're going to do it or not. But it leads me into understanding, guys, like people aren't upset. They mistake, and I've done this, trust me, before we, my brother and I were talking this yesterday, I never even knew what inflation really was. I'd heard about it, but in my lifetime, I never had to worry about it, okay, because it was just 2-3% max, whatever, normal. I wasn't an adult in the 70s. I didn't live through that stuff, right? So when inflation roared up, like I'll show you, then you notice, and then you start to figure out, okay, wait a minute, inflation versus what prices are, all this other stuff. So remember, inflation is just the increase in the prices, right? And understand, people aren't upset about inflation anymore. What they're upset about is the prices. They think they're upset about the inflation part, but that's not what it is. When it was sitting at 6, 7, 8, 9%, yes, you're upset. But now where it's at versus where it's going to be, and I'll show you on a chart, it's not a big difference. That's not what you're upset about. This is what you're upset about. Let me show you. See this right here? Prices still sky high despite inflation. Cool. And you should still be upset about this. Now, you can see, where did it start? Everything started ramping in 2020, but in 2021 is where it absolutely just skyrocketed. You can see all using cars and trucks, food away from home, shelter, which is a big problem, all items, personal care, medical care. So it's so much more expensive in that short amount of time, in 3 to 4 years, than it was over the last 20, 30 years, right? The increase that is, okay? The prices where they're at. Understand, I'm going to show you how this happened really quickly, when it happened. So if you want to know the truth, here it is. Ready? 2020, here's normal inflation, 2%, sometimes less, right? Then all of a sudden, look what happened in 2021. Just absolutely skyrocketed. We go from 2 to 9%, which is absolutely, unbelievable. And in our lifetime, it's just unbelievable. And just as fast as it came up, it went right back down, okay? And about the same amount of time, actually. And so we'll get into some details on this, and you can see where it's at now. And that's what I'm talking about. You're not upset about inflation. Let's see where it's at now and see where they wanted to get to. That's not big. It's the big rise up that screwed a lot of people, okay? I mean, all of us really when it comes to prices, that is, right? But it also benefited a lot of people who own appreciating assets. Now, what happened, right? People say, oh, it started in 2021. It's Biden's fault. Well, let me show you something. Check this out. This is what causes inflation. See the liquidity here? This is the central bank of ours, the Treasury, all the stuff they're doing. Look at the trillions of dollars. Look at the big jump. Look at this one. United States personal savings. Remember all those checks? All the unemployment stuff they were sending out? All the business loans that never got paid back? All this fun stuff? Boom. Absolutely. Look at that spike. Unbelievable. trillions of dollars. But here's the key, and here's where you got to picture this. I'm trying to give you a visual, right? We all got pipes in our homes. We've seen pipes, fire hydrants, all this good stuff, right? Now, if the water pressure is normal coming through there, everything's good, right? But pretend you have a pipe coming straight up, and there's a valve right here on top, a cover. And the water pressure is normal, everything's good, okay? Now, all of a sudden, go ahead and quadruple that water pressure. What's going to happen to the valve at the top eventually? It's going to explode. It's just going to boom. You ever see those fire hydrants? They're shooting up like geysers, right? It's like a geyser, okay? So in 2020, when we started 2020, the water pressure was normal. They injected $7 trillion, which we've never done in the history of the country, into the system, right? That's the water pressure going, oh my God, and that pipe's going, and the valve, and everything was cool in 2020 because why? We were locked down. You weren't traveling nowhere. Restaurants were closed. Like there was nothing to do. But what was the bank accounts doing? That's the water pressure, right? The bank accounts are building up, and the water pressure is building up. And then all of a sudden in 2021, we unlock. We unlock, and boom, what happens to the water pressure? It ignites, it breaks the pipe, okay? It is boom, gone, right? Now, how do we know this? Well, let's see here. That same personal savings rate, look at the drop off that began in 2021 going through 2022. Look at that. That is called, let me spend the money because a lot of it was free to me, okay? And so a lot of spending going on. How do we know about the traveling? Look at TSA here. This tells you the checkpoint, the number of people coming through the checkpoints, right? At TSA, look at that skyrocket when 2021 hit. Boom. We're traveling, baby. And by the way, side note, look what's happening now. We're still traveling. And that clearly shows that we were set free. Go, my children, spend and prosper. And boy, did we do it. Remember, half the country lives most likely paycheck to paycheck, but are financially irresponsible. They don't save nothing. So when they get anything in that savings account, it's going to go. All right. I grew up poor. I remember my mom saying this multiple times. Anytime, she would get extra $50, wink, wink. Like, we got to spend this. Like burning a hole in her pocket or something. I was like, why don't we save it? That's why we're poor. No, we spend it. Right. And so people started who couldn't afford vacations, going on vacations, buying new cars, buying whatever. I mean, just crazy amounts of spending going on, crazy amounts of traveling, all right? And you had what? A combination going on. You had the perfect storm setting up. 2020, that's when they started basically gathering all the dynamite in a big pile and stuff. That's the money going into the system, right? And then in 2021, they set us free, and that's igniting all that dynamite. Boom! That's inflation, by the way, because now all of a sudden what happened? Demand, us, spending went, whoo, off the charts. Well, guess what happens to supply? Supply didn't come up at all. Supply was down here because China, who makes all our stuff, was still shut down for another year after we started running wild. So what's that do to prices? It makes it go sky high trying to get all this stuff. So prices go demand here, inputs even higher, right? Guess what's going to happen to prices? Oh, my goodness. Way up. Okay? Way, way up. And so also on top of that, what'd you have? You had people retire. You had immigration down because they all went home because there was no jobs to be had. So you have a lack of workers. Another reason input costs, which is labor, went way up, and you were getting paid $20 all of a sudden from $7 to $20 to flip a burger, okay? And so that went way up. My brother-in-law was having to pay crazy amounts just to have people come in and work his chicken farms he'd never had to pay before, right? And so that makes also the cost go sky high. So that happened in 2021. What else did you have? And this is probably one of the things that really hurt us more than anything. You had a bunch of people in the Fed doing what? Right here you have savings, you have inflation, and there's the Fed, the bottom going, transitory, transitory, transitory. Oh my God, we got to raise rates fast. And then they skyrocket the rates. Now, the most important part is this. You are being lied to. All right, and that's normal for politicians. Both these people run for president, all these people run for senator and representative. They are all lying to you, okay? Because I've heard them all. And they'll sit there and tell you, oh, I'm going to fix this. Sure, they can help with inflation. They cannot help with the prices. The prices are what they are. As demand has slowed down for certain things, what have you seen done with prices? They've slowed down. What has helped the demand come down? People losing their jobs. That's what has helped demand come down. People realizing, oh my God, I better start putting back some money because I might lose my job, right? Or my significant other lost their job, right? So that's what's helped bring it down. But that's what brings down prices. Not a president, not a senator, none of them. Matter of fact, they've hurt us because what did they do in 2021? And both sides of the aisle, They passed huge spending bills, huge, like a $2 trillion infrastructure bill, other bills they kept passing, right? Forgiving student loan debt, all this stuff. That is more basically gasoline on the fire. Just keep pouring it on there and pouring it on there, right? And so again, inflation has come down because a lot of areas have come down, but they cannot fix the prices for you. They are lying. This whole thing about drill, baby, drill, I'm going to bring down gas prices that way. That's ridiculous. You cannot force, think about this, without martial law or something, in a free country like we're supposed to be, how is any president going to force Shell, Chevron, or any of the rest of them to drill for more oil? And why would they do it? It makes no sense. Why would you want to bring supply up? If you've seen what's happening in oil prices, by the way, all right, remember when they were bragging about record profits? Where was oil? It was up here. If oil goes way down here, right, because they raise supply, but demand just even stays. Say demand doesn't even fall, but demand stays here and supply goes way up here, what do you think is going to happen to oil prices? They're going to drop even farther, right? And then what does that do for their shareholders? They get very upset because they're going to be making way less money because they're putting all this labor into getting all this oil out of the ground and getting it to market and all that stuff, but the prices are dropping, so they're selling it for less. That makes absolutely no sense. All right, imagine you own a company and the president can call you up one day and say, I need you to cut your prices. I'm sorry, what? Would you do that? No. So I just want to go ahead and put that out there to you. I promise you. The only thing that we've ever seen in history that can drop the prices where they're currently at, what brings down demand faster than anything? It's when a recession hits. That's just the way it is. Go back and look at prices in 08, .com, whatever. You know, that's just the way it is. And because people lose their jobs, they have no money to spend, it brings down demand. But it was just the perfect storm. And like my nephew, when I asked him, what did you get out of this conversation? He goes, it was everybody's fault. That's it. It was everybody's fault. There you go. All right, so just want to put that there to you. I know it was a lot probably, but I at least want to show that to you. Now, and please feel free to share your comments in the bottom. I always love reading them. I really do. Because I know some people will absolutely disagree with that, but I also like learning stuff. So maybe I'll learn something in this conversation. Maybe one of you guys put something in the comments and I learned something, so that'd be great. Now, next one here says, Mike, since you mentioned Lulu and Ulta in this video, I thought I would suggest showing your members how similar the 15-minute chart for the stocks reacted on earnings day. When you compare them side by side, extended hours on, I sold a put and a call at side they expect to move the day before. Both earnings and close for big profits. This is a perfect example to explain IV crush. And what he's talking about, because this gets more and more popular, I put this out to the members, and I even put in my weekly videos for you guys who are new here. There's this implied moves, right, of what the option market is saying this stock, when they report earnings, is going to move, okay? And that's why the options are way more expensive during earnings weeks, right? And you can see, like, Lulu, for example, was like +9 or -9, somewhere in that range. Right? And you can see when they report it, you end up getting a huge 14% jump. So, of course, call buyers are like, I'm good. But, of course, the market likes to manipulate stuff, and the option market don't like to pay stuff out. So what happens? They just run it down. And so by the time the market actually opens, you're only +3.75, and then it just trades sideways. So most likely if you bought a straight up call or a straight up put, you were screwed, right? You got IV crushed because IV just drops the price of those options so fast the next day. And so if you get into something that has, like, you know, a plus or minus 15% move, you need a gigantic move, right, to be getting paid out. But he sold. The person here sold this stuff, and so he loved the IV crush. Now, you know, you look at Ulta, same thing, right? Drops 4% right on the Q, then goes up 12.5, and you could have got out positive on the calls here. You were screwed on puts, but boy, at 9:30, if you weren't able to get out, which you probably weren't, I mean, it dropped like a rock. Look how fast this thing dropped right at 9:30. As soon as they opened that bell up to try to sell those options, I mean, you were pretty much up the creek. So you looked at it was like a 6% drop in a matter of minutes. And so that wasn't good. But that is why it is really tough just playing a straight option or call on earnings. You really do got to get lucky. It's just crazy manipulation takes place on that. So, you know, hope that helps out with that. Just be careful if you're playing earnings and stuff. Now, looking at our last one here, it says from Scott, could you make a video about corporate buybacks, please? When a corporation announces a 100 million share buyback, this drives the stock price up. A lot of questions here. Are corporations required to buy the 100 million shares by the date they propose? Do they have to file how many shares they purchase daily, weekly? Is there a penalty if they don't buy back the proposed amount? Are they required to keep those shares for a certain amount of time? Are they required to remove the buybacks from the float, or can they just resell them the next day? Or buybacks really buybacks is my question. And when you look at this, I'll go ahead and try to answer as many of these as I can. And some of these are probably going to surprise you, right? And some of these are why I don't like stock buybacks at all. But understand that despite an authorization, a company may not buy back shares at all. Amazon was famous for this. If management changes its mind, a new priority arises, or a crisis hits, stock buybacks are always done at the prerogative of management. So the answer is no, they do not. Understand this as well. When a company performs a share buyback, it can do several things with the shares, okay? So first, it can reissue the stock on the stock market at a later time. In the case of a stock reissue, the stock is not canceled, but is sold again under the same stock number as it had previously been done. Or it may give or sell the stock to its employees as some type of employee compensation or stock sale. Finally, the company can retire the shares. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, most people probably don't know this about stock buybacks, but I'm going to tell you. Buybacks can be used to cover up stock issuance to managers. If the company issues stock based on compensation to managers, it dilutes the ownership of shareholders. Some management teams use buybacks to obscure how much issuance affects the share count to them. And lastly, buybacks may allow managers to enrich themselves at the expense of shareholders. If managers have options which become valuable once over a specific stock price and the ability to influence the stock price via repurchases, they may decide that they can temporarily boost the stock price in order to secure a gain on their options. And that's true. I mean, think about it. They know when they announce those stock buybacks, or what do? Oh, our earnings suck. Well, let's announce a stock buyback. And what happens to the share price? It jumps. And they can execute those options and go, whew, made a lot of money. And that's what I always say, share buybacks aren't for you or me. Okay, they're not even for institutions. They're really just for management and the board, because they're usually individually the biggest shareholders. They don't hold as much as BlackRock or something like that, but they have a lot of shares, okay? And so they're the ones that get enriched. They don't have just 100 shares or 200, 300. No, they have thousands. And so that's why now you don't have to start a company to be a billionaire. You can just go become a CEO or a CFO or go on the board or something, and you just keep getting shares after shares after shares issued to you, and you can use stuff like this to manipulate it higher for you. Isn't it a great system we live in? So yes, that's what happens right there. So hopefully that answers your questions and stuff. Please let me know in the comments any feedback you have on any of those. I always do read the comments, so I enjoy reading them and enjoy learning from you guys as well. I'll do a video tomorrow setting this up for the week. Should be an interesting one since we do have FOMC coming up next week. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Please hit the like and subscribe button on your way out, and I will see you tomorrow.